We are here today, Ask the Experts about gardening for better health. And so it's kind of going twofold. It's what you garden with, and it's the fact that you are gardening. So I'm Diane Blazek. I am the Executive Director for National Garden Bureau. I have with me Gail Pabst, and you are going to see her posting a lot of links in the chat, which, by the way, we will also save the chat and send that out. What I want to do now is do a quick introduction of our panelists. And after I do the quick introduction, I will toss it back to them and they can do their own little introduction. So we have Kirsten from Pure Line Seeds. We have Chelsea from Beau Seeds. And we have Shayna from, do you usually go by Inzazaden or Vitalis or both?
Both.
Okay, so we will let you introduce yourself and your dual named companies.
Sure. Yeah, so Shayna Bronstein, I live in Oregon and I work for Enzazaden Vitalis Organic Seeds. We're a Dutch breeding company. We breed vegetable seeds. And Vitalis is our organic brand. So everything under the Vitalis brand is 100% organically produced seed. And those varieties that we produce organically are the ones we find are best adapted for organic agriculture or low input agriculture. And we breed and produce seed all over the world, mostly herbs and small vegetables. So no beans and no corn, but a wide range of everything else.
Great. We are going to see the diversity, the international aspect, the many different varieties from all three of our panelists. So Chelsea, let's go to you.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Lenzik. I'm with Beau Seeds, Inc., which is a U.S. base of Beau Seychelles. We're a conventional and organic vegetable breeding company, and we focus on cabbage, carrots, onions, red beets, and then a whole litany of other vegetables that you can grow in your garden and out in the field as well. I'm based in Pennsylvania, but I travel around doing product development and as the organic lead for North America.
Great, thank you. Okay, and Kirsten.
Hi, I'm Kirsten DeLong. I am with Pure Line Seeds. We're a family-owned and operated company based in Warden, Washington, and we just celebrated our 75th anniversary last year, so we're pretty excited about that. We are also, just like everybody else, we breed and we produce seed. That's our name to the game. So we mainly focus on peas and beans, but over the last 15 years have expanded into a lot of the other sorts of crops, and it's been a lot of fun. I've been with the company about 9 years, working in product development and managing our trials.
Excellent. Okay, so I think we have three vegetable experts on here, and you guys look healthy, so you must be following your own tips, it looks like. So why don't we talk about that? We're going to get into specifics on varieties in just a bit. You see that I do have my presentation up on screen, but first, how does vegetable gardening help you stay healthy? How does it help your health? So does anybody want to tackle a couple of those points?
Yes, I'm sure we'll be a very polite panel, so you can poke us if you want us to start speaking sooner.
All names.
Okay, I'll be the teacher that calls names. So you spoke up first. Let's hear some of your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, you know, being outside and getting fresh air is always great in my opinion. When you can add gardening into it, which is, you know, a mix of calisthenics and, you know, movement and stretching. I think there's a lot of physical benefits for your body that you get just from being out there and staying active and staying moving. And then I'll answer this a little bit more fully at the end too, but definitely the mental health benefits of just connecting with the soil and watching something grow and raising a crop, I think is, you know, kind of irreplaceable.
Okay, I'm gonna poke you, Kirsten.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think something that I've really realized too within the past couple of years, but there's the whole thing with like sunlight, of course, sunlight is so good. But it's also good for, like your circadian rhythm, getting out there. And there's this whole thing about like grounding and that sort of thing. But I find too, when I can get out early in the morning and be out in the garden early in the morning, it's what I've learned, not that I'm an expert in necessarily like circadian rhythms, but that sunlight really resets your circadian rhythm, because I have always struggled with sleeping. I'm kind of just like a wired person, and that really helps me to sleep really good. And I have 2 little kids, and they come out with me. They're just, right at them early in the morning too. So they come out, and it's just really nice because they sleep better too. So it's just really good for the whole family, that sunlight aspect, not only just for like, just the nutrients we get from the sun, but also when we're out there, through our eyes and resetting our internal clock.
Awesome. Okay, Shayna, and you.
Yeah, absolutely. What everyone else has said already, I totally agree with. Also, just when you're growing your own food, of course, you're eating healthy stuff right out of the garden. And it helps you really appreciate how much work it takes to produce that wonderful, healthy food. So it really, I think, builds an appreciation for those healthy, nutritious vegetables that we all want to have more of in our diet. So, and then when you go to the farmer's market or the supermarket and you see that beautiful head of cauliflower, you really appreciate how much work it takes. And so it becomes even more of a treat to enjoy a fresh vegetable like that. So I think that really helps with that connection of where your food is coming from and why you want to be putting those good, nutritious vegetables into your body. And then, of course, there's also, like Kirsten kind of started to talk about, was that social connection, whether it's with your family, your community, your friends. Gardening can be a great way to interact with your community as well.
And I think, there is a whole organization called Kids Gardening, which we are very wholeheartedly in support of. And I know this is one that I've witnessed, and I'm sure all of you have and read up on it. But kids, when you get your children involved in gardening and they're able to pull a carrot out of the ground and eat it, they're able to pick a berry and eat it, suddenly they're much more willing to try a wider variety of vegetables. So to me, just getting over that hump of, ooh, it's ugly, or, ooh, I don't think I like it, and we all know that when you grow something, more often than not, it tastes better than what you can buy in the store. So yet another advantage for kids and nutrition and the diversity of things that they will eat also. So that's great. Are there certain I'll ruin the presentation if I ask that question. So I'm going to skip that one. The question was, which plants are best for nutrition? And so I think those are the ones you guys picked for your presentation. So why not? There is a very good question, and I want you guys to answer that right now. So we have one of our viewers is from Oklahoma City. She is a new gardener. Is it too late to grow or start growing now? So this is what, mid to late April in Oklahoma. Let's help her out and tell her that it's never too late to start, but let's give recommendations on maybe what she could try in Oklahoma.
Yeah, it isn't too late at all, for sure. It's, it always comes down to your crop and, even varieties, and not to be like overwhelming, because it's not overwhelming. And when you think of, there's so much room to play, even within certain crops. There might be crops that you're like, oh, well, that's a spring crop. And sometimes those crops, you can get away with it with certain varieties. So you can really play around with it. Try for things that, you could even start beans now, like faster maturing crops, squashes, summer squashes, especially if you're new to gardening. And I'm sure everybody else could attest to do stuff that, maybe more on the easier scale, because it's just, you get that like success, and it just like really pumps you, you want to do more. And I have to say that for myself too, like houseplants is a newer thing for me. So then I stick to things that are a little easier. Then it's like, it's a win. And then you build from there. But that's some of my initial recommendations.
Yeah, I would say leafy greens is always a great place to start because they're fast. You plant successions. So if you have a mistake or something doesn't work that first time, you can go back and plant another succession. And leafy greens is something you can play with all year long. You might change the varieties you grow or the types you grow, but that's always a really nice one. And pretty quickly you get the reward of some fresh vegetables.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I mean, if you are dying to try tomatoes and peppers, you know, there's a ton of great plants that are available out right now. You know, even if it's a little too late to start your seedlings inside, box stores have plants right now. A lot of the great gardening companies we work with right now are running plant sales. So it's a really good time to get plants. And I would start maybe with like a determinate tomato, which means it's going to come on in a shorter amount of time and you're going to get all of your fruit at once. It's going to be a more compact plant. You can try starting in a container. But yeah, I agree. Definitely still time. You have a lot of options still.
And if I could add something to Chelsea's, just because it made me think of this when, even when I first started in the industry, you know, it feels like a lifetime ago, but I remember, you know, there are obviously recommendations online how to grow, and they're so helpful, but don't be afraid to try things, you know, just direct seeding it. Like Chelsea's saying, either, you know, get some plants, or even if you have some tomato seeds, you know, just try throwing them in the garden. They'll grow. You just might get a really late crop, but you are in Oklahoma. So I'm in Wisconsin, or up in the northern part of the country. So, you know, you get that frost aspect, but in Oklahoma, you have a longer growing window. So, you know, you could just even start some of those direct, or get some plants like Chelsea's saying, and yeah, just play with it. And you'll be probably pretty surprised what will come from it. You know, those seeds are pretty vigorous. That's our job as seed companies. You know, we try to get some really good varieties out there so you have success.
Great tips. And Linda, one other thing, Oklahoma State University in Stillwater, they put out a wonderful public television show, very helpful, very precise to your location. So I would highly encourage you to find that, watch some of their episodes, especially on vegetable gardening. So great. Okay. Love helping a newbie. And I love when you can admit you're a newbie, because then you're going to get all kinds of advice. So, okay, let's move over to our presentation. And Chelsea, I believe you are up first. So we are going to let you get started here.
Woohoo. All right. Well, we'll start with Burgundy broccoli. This is a purple sprouting broccoli. If this is new to you, it's because this is a new development for the market. Previously, a lot of purple sprouting broccoli could only be grown in a certain part of the country, up in the Pacific Northwest, because the other varieties of old needed cooling periods, so like a fall period, to get it to flower and get that purple color to come on. Broccoli, this Burgundy, you can grow in all over the US and sow it multiple times throughout the season. So we work it from New York down to Georgia, out to the Pacific Northwest, and even down the California coast. So you can grow it all season long, spring, summer, fall. You can succession plant it. So you'll get a harvest every like 60 to 75 days. You can cut it 3 or 4 times. And then what you get from that are a bunch of kind of button-sized florets on a long stem. So it's a multi-cut. You'll get a whole bunch of those when you cut them. And then we recommend using it for a fresh application or like a very quick steaming, because you still want to retain that purple color and the sweet, tender crunch that comes along with the variety. We always get the question, you know, if I steam it or if I cook it longer, will you lose the purple color? Indeed, you will. But to me, like, that is what your standard headed broccoli is for. If you want a broccoli that you're going to steam for 20 minutes, go with your standard broccoli. If you want something that you're going to, you know, top a pizza with, or top a salad with, or finish a stir fry with, that's like a flash fry, you know, 5 minutes, something like that, or fresh use, then Burgundy is really the best variety for that.
And I like here, because what we hear is the more colorful your vegetables, the healthier they are. So I think we've got a good purple broccoli here that's healthy.
That's right. Okay, so Caraflex. The other name that we have called this is Sweetheart Latage, which is a lettuce by cabbage cross. And what I want you to hear from that is it's sweet enough to eat like a lettuce, but with the more tender suppleness of a cabbage. So this is a really uniform variety. It comes out with these really beautiful little pointed heads. You can grow them as a mini, so something in a 6-inch tall, really like 1 pound range, or you can let it grow more fully to the 2.5 pound range. And what you can do with this is well, a bunch of different things, but when you split it, it comes out with these beautiful heart-shaped boats that you can fill with things, you can steam with things, and again, you can even just peel off those leaves and like use it as a super healthy replacement for something like an iceberg lettuce. But again, versatile, salads, slaws, and then of course, sometimes you just end up with a little too much cabbage at the end of the day. So you can still use it for your regular, cooking and soups and stews as well. This variety, Purple Haze, is an AS winner. So you can see a very distinct coloration here. It has the purple exterior and then a really bright orange interior. This is a longer carry. It's 7 to 8 inch tapered roots. The good thing is it means it has some power. So if you have soil that's a bit stodgier or maybe a bit more clay like we have in the Northeast, this is going to have a little bit more power behind it with a nice strong top too, which helps you be able to pull the root easier. Very, very sweet, just absolutely packed with vitamins and minerals, having both the orange and the purple colors in there. Again, if you cook this a long amount of time, you'll start, or peel it, of course, you'll lose out on that beautiful purple color. So more for carrot quarters or cubing it or something more in a raw fashion, because you eat with your eyes first, and so the coloration on this helps with that. Konan Kohlrabi, another AS winner. A lot of people are not familiar with kohlrabi. They look like little planets sitting on the soil when they're growing out there. It's like a little Jupiter with this like fun leafy top on it. They are so superb. Kohlrabi by and large is sweet, it's crisp, it's tender, it's refreshing, it's dense, super vitamin packed as well. And it's a lot of fun to have with it. So because of that kind of dense structure, you can use it as a canoodle, or a noodle where you would twist it or julienne it up into something that you would cover with sauce or butter or whatever you're going to use your noodle for. But you can also use it as snack sticks. This has some traction in some of the school garden to school lunch programs. They're using more kohlrabi to get kids some nutrient alternatives to chips and fries and that sort of thing during the day. And then don't miss out on the tops either. If you take it at the right time, you can take those tops and take the stems and just as easily throw them into a stir fry or soup or a caldo verde or something like that you can use it basically root to tip. And then I think this is my last one. So this is a flat-headed cabbage called Gunma. The dimensions on it are pretty wild. So it's about 8 inches deep and 13 inches wide. And what you do with that is you harvest this beautiful flat cabbage. You take the sides off, so you're effectively left with a square palette of cabbage leaves. Then you just start peeling those leaves off and you use them. You can use them as a wrap. You can use them as a taco alternative, basically a vessel, very nice, healthy, straight from the garden vessel that is just, again, packed with fiber, packed with macro and micronutrients to just infuse your dish with another hit of healthfulness. Very, very sweet, very tender, does beautifully in slaws as well, and then has enough density that you can get a little bit of storage out of it, a few weeks of storage, and then also use it in krauts and kimchis and a little kimchi and a little bit later down the line if you don't want to use all of your harvest at once.
Excellent. Thank you. And it just dawned on me, I'll have Gail post a link to shop our members, because your varieties are carried by a lot of the major online retailers and seed companies. So we'll post that because I'm pretty sure that's a question that people have is how do I find these? So that is what we will do. And now we're going to move on to yet another AAS winner. Thank you, Chelsea. And Kirsten, you're up with an AAS winning bean from recent years. So tell us about Seychelles.
Yeah, so Seychelles is by far one of my most favorite beans and just varieties to grow. And we grow a lot of varieties. So this is a pole bean. And most people don't really typically think to grow pole beans. They are usually used to bush beans, but the nice thing about pole beans, they really are so easy. If you have something for them to grow up, you know, even construct a super, super simple, you know, trellis, anything, you'll just climb it by itself. You don't need to train it. And this thing, you can see this picture. This is my coworker, Kelsey. She's picking a whole handful. I mean, they'll have 6 long trusses. So there'll be 6 pods on a truss that you can pick. The pods themselves are pretty long. So they're about 6 inches long and they're tender as well. So they don't have, some beans are quite fibrous, but these are tender. A lot of people that don't really care for green beans prefer Seychelles because it does have more of that sweet taste to it. And it's just a heavy producer. So you can go in there and just keep, you know, harvesting. It's a great snacking one. Or even if something that you don't want to necessarily can, but you want to have fresh beans basically all summer long. This is a great option for that because you'll just keep harvesting up that vine. And it does grow pretty tall. So it can grow 7 to 9 feet tall, depending on your conditions. So if you don't want it to get so tall, just trim the top and it'll allow for more flowers at the lower part of the vine. So then you can harvest more lower instead of having to go up and up and up. But this is a great and easy one that I highly suggest to anybody, especially if you're starting out in gardening. Then this is our Rainbow Candy Crush. It's an edible kale. So we get, if anybody's familiar with ornamentals, it has that ornamental peel of like an ornamental kale, but it's edible as well. It's actually pretty tender and does have a sweet taste to it for being a kale. And then back to like what Diane was saying with, you know, the antioxidants and the purpling in this kale, it's called anthocyanin, and that's really healthy. It's really good to eat, you know, a lot of that deep colors. So with this variety, it has a really nice mounded habit. And it almost, and you can kind of see it in these pictures, it almost looks like somebody came and took a shear to them and, you know, sheared them that way. So a lot of kale is really upward growing. Sometimes it can get pretty wild, but this one stays this beautiful bush habit. So it would work great in your landscaping too. You wouldn't even have to put it, you know, in your garden, or you could put it in a pot. This works great in a pot as well. You could put it in like an 8-inch or even bigger with a combo of things. So super versatile. It's beautiful. So in the summer, it'll be more of a green color with a hot pink center. And then as the nights get cooler, it turns a beautiful deep purple. The, you know, outer leaves get purple, the inner leaves get more of a magenta color. And then the beautiful thing with this, it can overwinter. I have it in my raised beds. Those raised beds are actually at my house and they're growing back and they're just, you know, beautiful. So this is definitely one of my favorites. It does great in heat. A lot of times cabbages or, you know, kales, brassicas, they don't love necessarily the heat, and so that's the bolting tolerant, so it doesn't bolt in the heat, so it's bred to not bolt, and so that means, you know, you can keep enjoying it even in the heat. So parsley pea is honestly one that we've had in our program for a little while, and this picture almost doesn't do it full justice, but so with peas, they have these beautiful vines, and typically your standard peas, they need to be trellised. And varieties that we've bred over the years are called Aphila vines. That means they almost have Velcro vines to them. So they don't need a trellis. They can grow on each other like Velcro. So they'll grow to the next, onto the next plant next to them. So parsley pea is unique because you can see those tendrils. They're really, really frilly. They're extra frilly and they make a great garnish. If you pick them young enough, you can just eat them. They like throw them in a salad and you get that really great tea taste. And then an added bonus, you also get the pods too. So you can, it's an English pea, so that means you want to shell the berries out and you eat the berries, so you don't eat the pod. But the berries on this, at Pureline, peas is one of our top crops. So we look at, 200 plus varieties a year, but this one is actually one of my favorites for just snacking on. It's a very sweet pea. And yeah, once again, you have that beautiful frilly vine to it. So you can also eat the tendrils or the vines as well. And then another pea, this is a brand new one from us. It's called Peas in a Pod Bernard. This is also a dual purpose one. You can see this is in a pot. We typically, like, let's say you have a 6-inch or maybe an 8-inch pot, throw in at least 8 to 10 plants. I know that sounds like a lot, but peas love to be really compacted in there. So throw a bunch of seed in there, maybe have an inch or two spacing between the seeds and just let it grow. And then this is an Aphylla vine as well. So it'll Velcro together itself. So it doesn't need a trellis. And then they'll put these beautiful little tiny cute petite pods on them. So once again, this is an English pea. So you want to shell it. You can kind of see in the picture too, there's those little berries. You want to eat the berries. But just a fun one for little kids too, because it's a quick crop. So you could start it now, basically pretty much anywhere you are in the state. Start it now, and then you'll be harvesting before 4th of July on these ones. Then another container one that we have that's brand new from us is Tiny Temptations Orange. As you can see, it's a tomato. It's what we'd consider like a determinate, but we call it a dwarf. So it's super small. In this pot, it's about a 10-inch container, and there's actually 3 plants in there. And it grows in this beautiful mounded habit, and just loaded with fruit. It's a high yielder, and it's our sweetest variety. So it's upwards of 15 bricks on such a small plant. So this would be a really fun one for a patio as well. Like you could take maybe a kale or a pea or anything like that, throw it together in a nice container, and it'll show really nice. Yeah, it's one of my favorites for sure. And then Bendita is another tomato from us. This is one that you'd want to grow in the field or in the garden. This is what we call a semi-determinate. So it's not quite the indeterminate, those really tall ones. And it's not like the dwarf that we just saw. So it's like right happy medium. So you don't need to necessarily trellis this if you didn't want to. I typically do trellis it just because it just keeps it cleaner. But it puts on nice big beefsteak type tomatoes. They're about 200 grams, so they're pretty hefty. And you can see even in this picture, they're great for slicing and putting on like a hamburger or putting in a salad. And that color is just absolutely vibrant. It's a super, super orange color, which there's a lot of health benefits to that orange color as well. The same thing you would get in carrots, those orange carrots. So, and also a lot of people really like this variety because it has low acidity. So people that might have a lot of you eat a tomato and you get, your acid reflux or just a lot of like burping and stuff like that. This one people come to, we in our trials too, people come and like, hey, can we pick the Bendita? Because they know that they don't get the negative side effects of that high acid content. And it's also just very beautiful too. And then another tomato is Rugby. This is an indeterminate, so it is a taller one, and you'd want to trellis this. This is a pink tomato, and it's actually one, it's almost, you could use it like aroma type. So you can see how much flesh meat is in that tomato when it's sliced open. So this is actually my favorite variety for saucing, just because it has so much flesh content. My grandma does too, my mom, we all pick Rugby, and we like to can this one up. It's great for salsas, spaghetti sauce, that sort of thing. And it will have a slightly different color just because it is a pink tomato, but it's just fun too because it's so unique. It has that beautiful heart shape. So also it would be a fun one for kids as well. And you can see the immature color too is fun as well. It's just a vibrant, almost neon green. So this one is a good one. And with this one and that Bendita, I was talking about that orange one, they're both really nice for just, throwing out in the open field. They're really low maintenance varieties. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And now it's Shayna's turn, and there's another AAS winner here.
Yeah, this is our AAS winner, Bauer lettuce. It's a really, really unique variety. It's not, doesn't grow quite as large as a full-sized head of lettuce. It gets to be about what we call mid or midi size. But it is an oak leaf. So It's got a really nice combination of a bit of a thicker leaf, but also a soft, buttery texture. So it's just got this nice crunch to it, but also very sweet. So very different than a romaine or an iceberg or just a loose leaf lettuce that you might grow. It works great for something like cut and come again, or also just for a single head harvest, whichever way you like to grow your lettuce. And it does have really great mildew resistance, which I know can be a challenge for a lot of gardeners around the country. So it is a variety you can grow pretty much anywhere. It does have decent heat tolerance to go through the summer. So we really love this variety. And of course, lettuce is really hydrating for you. It's good source of vitamin A, which is good for your vision and your skin. And of course, all the good toppings that we put on our salads as well makes lettuce just a really nice, healthy vegetable to grow in the garden, and also pretty fast growing and fairly easy to grow. So this is a variety that I grow in my own garden and just love.
So one of the things, Chelsea had mentioned it with the broccoli. I can't remember if Kirsten had, but you mentioned cut and come again. So that is nice. There are certain vegetables that you can plant and harvest as a baby stage or as smaller. Sometimes with a broccoli, if you cut out the center stem, then you get the side shoots. So I've just heard that terminology quite a bit and wanted to make sure that everybody understood what cut and come again means. So, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so on the lettuce or even on something like an endive, what you can do is go and take the outside leaves, leave the inner heart, and then that will regrow. That will continue to grow for a couple times. And then eventually the plant will decide it's done and it will send up a stalk and start to bolt. And that changes the flavor profile and everything like that as well. But yes, the next variety that I wanted to talk about was Benefine Endive. It's a Frisee type, which is very trendy these days. We see it in a lot of restaurants on the menus. It is an endive, so it has a more bitter profile than a lettuce, but that bitter profile, those bitter compounds are actually really helpful for you. They aid in digestion. I like to eat my Frisee with like a nice honey mustard, something a little bit sweet to complement the bitterness of the varieties. But this variety I love, again, because it's very adaptable, meaning it can grow in a lot of different conditions in a lot of different places in the country. It's one of the most resistant varieties I've seen to the heat. So it doesn't bolt too fast and it doesn't get any kind of tip burn or yellowing of the leaves. So this is a really, really nice, if you've tried growing Frisee before and not been successful, I would recommend trying it again with this variety because it is really easy to grow and good for warm conditions in the summer. So, and also it adds a really nice loft to your plate. It's got that nice frilly leaf. It's a fun vegetable to grow. Yeah, Mexicana is one of my personal favorites. It's what we call a gray zucchini, sometimes referred to as a Mexican zucchini. Sometimes similar type would be a Lebanese type. But as you can see, it's got that nice bulbous shape, which makes it really great for stuffing, for grilling. I really like to hollow these out and stuff them with a little bit of meat and rice, some tomatoes. It's a great vehicle for other vegetables. And it does, one thing I really like about Mexicana zucchini is that it has a very open plant and a pretty compact plant. So instead of the vines growing kind of trailing all over the garden, they grow very upright and the leaves stay very open, which makes it easier to get in there and harvest. It makes it easier to see the fruit on the plant. And yeah, it just helps when you get in there, you're not scratching your hands on the spines because the spines are pretty minimal and they're well spaced apart. And one tip I'd like to give with zucchini is don't let that first or second zucchini sit on your plant and waiting for it to get big. Go ahead and pick those zucchini that will promote the plant, that it says, oh, I need to keep producing more fruits, and it'll keep going. I see a lot of people, they'll have that one sad little giant zucchini hanging on their plant. And that says to the plant, hey, I'm making seed, my job is done, I don't need to keep producing fruits. So please do pick those first early zucchini. The plant will keep producing, keep them coming. And then if you like larger ones later in the season, you can get some of those off your plant. So that's my tip for growing zucchini. Pozzano tomato, another one that I really love. It's a San Marzano type. And if you've ever tried to grow these types, they can be challenging. The fruit can be pretty small. And also it's pretty notorious for getting that blossom end rot. Also, a lot of the traditional varieties have a very pronounced green shoulder on the top, which is fine. But aesthetically, Pozzano is just really striking because you get these fully red, shiny fruit that are very resistant to blossom end rot. This is an indeterminate tomato, so definitely something you'd want to stake or trellis, but makes great sauces. It's really that nice traditional Italian type tomato. And of course, tomatoes high in lycopene, really good antioxidant for fighting all kinds of diseases. Another vegetable that has great antioxidants is melon, of course, and cantaloupe is one of those. Divergent melon is one of my favorites because it's divergent. It's different. It's a cross between a cantaloupe and a Gallia melon. So it's got the outside netting is more like what you would see of a Gallia, but the inside is a nice sweet orange flesh. Really kind of an old-fashioned cantaloupe flavor, we say. So it's got that musk to it. It's not all just pure sugar. It's got a really nice flavor profile. And again, this variety is really early to mature. So really great for growing in short growing seasons. You're going to get some nice melons before it frosts. And I think the last one I have on my list is Evi Basil, which is one of our new downy mildew resistant varieties. So if you do get that black spores growing on your leaves, that's likely mildew. It's something that's become a problem in the US over the last 5 to 10 years. And so it's likely, especially towards the end of the season, that you will see that in your garden. This variety is resistant to it, not 100% resistant, but it can hold its own against the disease. And so that's why we really love this variety. It's got a traditional basil flavor. It's slow to bolt. Yeah, and again, of course, there's lots of chemical compounds, phytochemicals in basil that are great for your health.
And when you add basil to something, it makes it taste even better. At least that's my opinion. Yeah. So I'm going to take the presentation down, and I don't know about everybody else, but I'm salivating and I'm ready for lunch now after seeing all that, which that's part of what we want to do. We want to entice everybody with the appealing look and flavor of these vegetables. So yeah, it worked on me, but maybe I'm just a big fan of vegetable gardening. So let's go through and talk about gardening for better health a little bit more. One of the questions that we got was, what about people with physical challenges, either mobility or flexibility? I think somebody was mentioning some of the things about gardening earlier, and boy, depending on what you're gardening in, it requires some flexibility. I'm sure we've all come back in with thighs and arms and shoulders, but any kind of tips, I'm sure you each have several tips. So if you are limited in any way physically, what are some favorite tips on how you can continue to garden?
Well, I would highly recommend raised beds for sure. My husband actually built a bunch for the company I work for, and I was asking last night, how tall are they? But basically up to your thigh. I mean, I recommend not doing too low. That's one of the things that I see is a lot of raised beds are too low. And it's almost like, what's the point at that rate? Because then like rabbits can get in there. And then also it is just hard to work in it. And then also if they're too high, I've seen ones that are also much too high. I'm kind of just an average gal as far as height, but up to hip and higher, then it's hard if you've got maybe some taller crops in there to work with them. So if you get kind of that sweet spot, but something taller, you can easily just reach in even to the middle of the bed, plant your items, or even if you start getting something taller, you can still reach it and harvest from it. So that's probably one of my biggest is raised beds. I love them. I mean, I didn't think I'd love them as much as I do, but yeah, just have series of raised beds everywhere, and life would be so much better.
Excellent.
Yeah, I would add to that too, bed diameter. You don't really want something that you have to reach over into. So if you're custom building, that's excellent. Think about what your arm reach is from like a nice upstanding position, which is probably 2 feet. And that's the max center of your bed if you can work around the whole side of it. Or if it's going up against the fence or something like that, you want it to just be something that you can easily reach into. And I guess I would add access, depending on how able-bodied you are, you want something, if that you can get to easily. And so a lot of that is evening the ground, putting a nice base in if you can, something that's going to be a firm standing platform for you that you can feel very comfortable and secure in. And then, being cognizant of your body, it's okay. I think gardening is wonderful because it's a slow hobby, or it can be a slow hobby. Just do what you can for the day. Don't bite off more than you can chew, and think about what it is that you're using. If you're bending, are you able to support, that bend with your core or your back muscles? Or if you're picking something up, you don't lift with your back, of course, you lift with your knees. uh and having the right ergonomic tools. We're a panel of women here. There's a great assortment now of tools that are smaller diameter handles for a woman's hand, and also a bit on the lighter side. They're made of lighter materials, and so getting and then you can take that even further if there's other ability or disability limitations that you're working with. There's a variety of tools out there that are made for various aspects, I think, to work within, within a way to get you out into the garden and doing it comfortably.
Yeah, I think that's so true, Chelsea. The long-handled tools, things that you can really use your ergonomically, are so important. And I would add to that, if you're limited in mobility or low energy, even consider taking a chair out to the garden and working from the chair, working on a stool, bringing a, a kneeling pillow, or having knee guards if you're doing some kneeling to protect your knees. And really also switching up the tasks, right? Like, don't do a hard task for too long. Take a break, do something that you can rest your body, like harvesting, or just enjoying the garden for a little while, because you don't want to over fatigue your body. And there's so much to do in the garden that you can break up those tasks if you need to. So I think, just like everyone has said, being really conscious of your body, even consider stretching before you go out in the garden to help you, so that you're not injuring yourself when you get there. Also, the other thing I wanted to say is, if you can't set up your own garden due to physical limitations, there are a lot of community gardens, school gardens, places where you can get involved that are accessible to a wide range of people. And I'm sure they would love to have some help. So that's always an option as well.
Yeah, can I add something to that as well? Because when you're talking, I was thinking too. So last year I was pregnant, very pregnant throughout the summer, and so one of the things I found really helpful for me, because there was some mobility things there with a large belly and that sort of thing, but I have found, even just over the years, is having things on me. So I've over the years bought like pouches that I just snap to my waist, and I just keep everything in my pouch. So like the hand tools and my seed, anything, it's all in my pouch. So I don't have to keep like walking back and forth and getting stuff, or even just bending over. It's all right there. Or even if you're trellising something up, putting clips, in your pouch that you can trellis. And also with that, there's a lot of container varieties out there too. So really consider containers. I think they've grown in popularity over the years, but I think there's still so much out there that people don't even realize, like as far as varieties and options there. So yeah, just have a lot of fun with playing with different things, throwing something in, something you would typically not think should be in there. Maybe somewhere you typically put flowers, maybe try putting some of your vegetables there, because it's closer to your house. Or so yeah, hopefully those are helpful.
Very, very helpful. And I was going to add in too, I mean, I know that hanging baskets have some challenges with how they dry out, but there may be certain vegetables or fruits that you could grow in hanging baskets, and then you don't even have to bend over. You can just reach up and pluck a few berries or beans or peas or whatever it might be off of a hanging basket would be another way. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, which is related in a little bit, is our support of therapeutic gardens. So we've been talking about how garden is good for you. There are a very large number of therapeutic gardens throughout North America, and we actually have a grant program, and we've just opened up applications. So if anyone listening is involved with a horticulture therapy garden, you could go to our website. Gail can post a link to that, because the grants will be, the deadline is in July, and then we actually award the grants this fall. So we are very much supporters of how gardening can help you mentally, physically, and everything. And this grant is one of the ways we do that. So thank you, everybody, for your tips. So now let's talk about some general garden growing and care. Is there, like, let's talk about fertilizer first. Is there something you should be using, shouldn't be using? Does what you feed your plants affect how it feeds you? So what are your tips along those lines?
Yep. So I personally am a big fan of compost. So where I'm at, I can usually get some composted manure, but I also love, I think it's okay to say, there's the Black Cow brand, which is carried at Home Depot, which is my local box store, which I think is really reliable. And then also I make my own compost and use King Neptune's fish and sea kelp fertilizer. It's a bit stinky, but it's really, really great in organic matter. Yeah, I mean, generally, the healthier plant is, the more successful you're going to be. So something that's planted at the right time of year, generally in full sun when we're talking about vegetables, and that is well fed, is going to better be able to fend off pests and diseases, collect that sunlight for photosynthesis and turn that into fruit for your harvest. So yeah, generally a nice even feeding is good. And then what comes along with that is timing, types of feeding for the vegetable. It's more to get into now, but I'm sure Diane and Gail have a bunch of great resources that can suggest to you best times of year to plant. But yeah, I would say, if you can incorporate feeding into the cycle, typically when your vegetables start flowering, and then again at mid-harvest, it's both the times where they're using a lot of energy. Plants put a lot of energy into flowering, going into that reproductive stage. They can use a little boost then. And then after you've started to take some harvest off, and perhaps they're fatiguing, or maybe you've missed that first zucchini pick and they're getting closer to setting seed, then you want them to, if you can give them a little feeding, then you'll be able to extend your growing season.
Yeah, and something I've found too is it's really simple that I didn't realize was so simple, but doing soil samples. So it depends on how big you're trying to go, how big your endeavor is, how big your garden is, but soil samples, you can order online soil samples too. Like you can do, Amazon has some stuff, or you can even go through a local lab. So I've gone through in Wisconsin here, Egg Source Laboratories, and it's honestly pretty cheap. As far as I thought, it can range from like $8 to $30, depending on what you're wanting for your analysis. But for me, I would just do like the basic analysis. And even so where I'm growing, when I would get that soil sample back, it told me what my soil was lacking. And actually, I thought my soil was lacking so much, I was going to have to pump so much on my plants. And then I found that my soil was actually kind of hot. There's too much nutrients in it. And so, which made sense because the year before I was just, fertilizing. And then I saw a lot of like overproduction, like it got too leafy or things like that. So that's a great way to, like, if you have no even baseline, especially for just your, garden, if you have a large garden or something, I really recommend it, because then that will last you quite a while if you're doing the same thing, or if you're doing crop rotations and that sort of thing. But it gives you kind of a baseline idea. And like I said, it's not too expensive to do some sort of soil test.
Yeah. Those are all great tips. I would add too that if you're using organic fertilizers or natural fertilizers, those tend to break down more slowly in the soil. So considering adding fertility to your garden, maybe in the fall, so that it can have time to break down and be available for you the next season. I really do love the fish emulsion fertilizers, the liquid fertilizers, like Chelsea said. They can be a little stinky. You don't want to put them on something you're just about to eat, but they're really fast acting, and you can spray them right on the leaves or right into the soil, and it can make a pretty big impact in a short amount of time. So if you see something struggling, that's a great kind of quick pick-me-up for plants.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought up soil testing, because that's one of probably the first things you should do. First, you need to decide to garden, but then definitely you need to know what is in your soil. And I see there's a lot of comments here about cooperative extensions. USDA offices will be doing soil testing. Some looks like North Carolina is doing it free. And then once you get your soil tested, I'm assuming that they will give you the recommendations on what to do, if anything, for your soil. We had somebody say that their soil was low in potassium. Do you have any recommendations on how to add potassium to your soil?
Yeah, so if you're going to take something off the shelf for fertilizer, typically you'll see 3 numbers on it. It's a number, dash, number, dash, number, and that stands for nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, N, P, and K, which are the 3 kind of baseline nutrients that you want in your soil and to be available to your plant. They make all the other micro and macronutrients more readily available to the plant. So if you find that you're low in potassium, you could look for something that's like a 0015, which means no nitrogen, no phosphorus, but it has the potassium. Really, or you could go for something that is like a straight potassium additive, which will be available, from a box store shelf. You can make like a banana extract if you soak some banana peels and some water, and so there's definitely some like at home things that you can do that for. Do that with also, but I like reading a good label. I like getting a good organic fertilizer or compost, because it's going to be well mixed. That you're getting a pretty straightforward application, and just going with that. So I would pay attention to that 3rd number on an off-the-shelf feed.
Yeah, and like I said, organic fertilizers can be a little bit slower to act in your soil, but things like seaweed, kelp, green sand, those are all natural sources of potassium, as well as I think potassium sulfate is available as well. So those are all things that are high in potassium that you can add, but they may take a little while to break down in your soil.
And there's another question here about biochar. Have you used it? I'm hearing a lot of talk about that. In fact, we have Sungrow has a new mix called Black Bear, I believe, and it has biochar. I personally don't have any experience. Have you guys used any biochar?
Yeah, I have. Anybody else? So the way in my past life we had done a lot of trials on various biochars. The way I more think of it is it's like an insurance policy. If you need a boost and some better accessibility to the nutrients in a stodgier soil, I think that you're more bound to see the results from the product. If you already have a beautiful, loose, well-draining soil that's even in nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, I think that you're not going to as readily see that that uptick in your yield or plant performance. Again, that's just from my point of view of trials though. And so I know there's always new products hitting the shelf every day. And what I would say is experiment with it. That's one of the most fun things in the garden. Have a container of two of the exact same things, put biochar in one soil, not in the other soil, and see what that does for you.
Your own home trial. Excellent.
Yeah, just say make sure you know where your biochar is coming from. Make sure it's something clean that you want to put into your soil. But yeah, it can help with water retention. I think it can help maybe with the micronutrient, the microbes in the soil diversity can help with some of that. But like Chelsea said, it's going to depend on how your soil is to start with. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Wow. When we get down to the 3-minute mark, here's what I like to do to close out our webinars is I ask each panelist one of your favorite tips. So today is, what is your favorite way to improve your health, those of your friends and family, by vegetable gardening? I mean, and the tips can be very broad ranging, but who wants to go first? Who has their tip prepared?
You know, we're all wonderful preparers, Diane.
Yeah, I'll go first. So I guess mine might be a little twofold, but so it might not be just one thing, but overall though, I will say just have fun with it. Like that, the more you have fun with it, you're gonna just enjoy it too. I think that's what I see a lot in people. They'll get too stressed out about it, or like, oh, it's not growing right. Like, maybe try doing, even what Chelsea's saying, like do your own little trial, like throw things out there. I mean, that's how, we do our work, is we're testing things, and, in one sense, you can't really go wrong. So just throw things out there and see how it's going to happen. Even if, like they say, well, you're supposed to start it inside. You never know, and of course there could be limitations there with space or timing. And also with that, just plan on things that, especially if you want to like preserve something or keep it, like something you're going to love eating, that you're going to like want to go to all the time. So for our family, for instance, this past year, I found a really cool way to store carrots, and we've just been like eating carrots like crazy, and it's lasted all winter, and it's this huge sense of accomplishment too. It's like, wow, this is so cool. Like I was able to store all these carrots. So, maybe try to pick like one crop that you can really hone in on and just like kind of make it your baby type of thing. That's probably one of my biggest things. Even working in the industry for so many years, there's still so many like feats and hurdles to jump over and things to learn. And so yeah, have fun with it for sure.
Awesome. I love that tip. Okay, who's next?
I can go next. It plays on Kirsten's, which is, yeah, don't stress about it. Try to make it as fun as possible. For me, that means picking the things that I know are going to grow well in my garden, and that we're going to really enjoy. And the things that I struggle with, I've let go of those, and I enjoy them from a neighbor's garden or from the farmer's market. But I try not to stress about it too much. And the things we grow a lot of herbs, we grow a lot of garlic, and we use those in almost every single meal. So it's very satisfying. So we found things that work and grow very easily in our garden. And those for me are the most rewarding. And there's no stress there. So that's, gardening is meant to be meditative. It's meant to be relaxing. If it's stressing you out, find a different way to do something.
I love it. Yes. Okay. Chelsea, yours?
Yeah, I mean, right on the back of stress relief, I would say visit your garden every day. Whether that's first thing in the morning, like Kirsten does. I tend to do it after the dinner rush is over in my house. And, maybe the kids or husband will come out with me, but I'll take my wine or a tea, and just I walk my garden and I take it in. And it's a great way to see what has happened throughout the day, because always something has happened throughout the day. It's a good way to just like pull a couple weeds at dusk, so you end your day like with a win, you've done something. It takes one less burden off for the next day. And just that general clearing, it like lets all the chatter of the day fade away, because you are just taking in the sights and sounds of the garden. And if you can do that once a day, lunch break, whatever part of the day, like I guarantee you it's going to be a win and something you look forward to.
I love that. I've heard people say, I'm a coffee gardener, I'm a lunch gardener, I'm a wine gardener. So it's like the amount of time it takes them to consume whatever it is they're carrying out in the garden, that's their daily fix. And it makes them feel so much better. And I'm just going to add in my little tip. A lot of times I talk about this is grow something that's unique. And I'm not disparaging green peppers at all, but green peppers, they're pretty cheap in the grocery store and we buy them almost by the dozens. We eat so many, but I also like growing the unique things, like the bishop's hat pepper and the red and yellow peppers, the small ones and things like that, just because then you're growing the unique and it's even more fun. So, okay, I think we're 2 minutes over. So sorry about that, but I think it was well worth it. And with that, I am just going to profusely thank all three of you for sharing your knowledge and your tips and showing us some wonderfully delicious looking varieties. And with that, I think it's time for us to wrap things up so we can go get in our vegetable gardens.